So the UFC comes out with a huge fight announcement. They basically announced the full card almost for UFC 291 at the end of July. It's going to be a banger card, but it comes at the expense of Francis Ngannou. Ngannou earlier in the day did announce that he would be signing with the PFL on a just below or just shy of $10 million deal, and he would also be a chairman of PFL Africa. Don't know what that means. He does get some equity in that as well. It's a 2 to 3 fight deal. It's still a little bit unsure. I think he wants to box in the meantime, but will he get one of the big boxing names? I don't know. That's a whole other video in itself. But the UFC basically just mogged Ngannou with this announcement, which is the funny part. And yeah, they basically announced a whole new stacked 291 card, and I want to break down some of the fights on the card. So far, we have Poirier versus Gaethje 2. We have Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira, Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green, Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliskerov, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Mikael Pereira. We have Derek Lewis and Kevin Holland and Michael Chiesa. So this is a really stacked card for 291, which is what we needed. We needed it so bad. I was begging for this. Literally early in the day, I uploaded a video talking about how the cards were so bad and we need some more excitement and name value added to some of these cards. And guess what? The UFC stuck it in my face, put it down my throat, and gave me 291 to be excited about, which I am happy. Thank the Lord. Let's go. Poor Ngannou. Like, once Ngannou announced that he was going to have a big announcement the next day on Instagram, that was probably his biggest mistake, because you know the UFC was pulling some strings. I wouldn't be surprised if they were even withholding this card just to wait for Ngannou to announce something so that they could one-up him. It's definitely some sort of shady business move that I see the UFC doing, and you know this is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout Ngannou's career. Whenever Ngannou fights anybody, probably till the end of time or the end of his career, you know the UFC is going to stack cards on the same night that he fights. They're going to really try to overshadow him as much as possible whenever he does fight. You know, when he does fight in 2024, which I think is pretty dumb. He should probably fight sooner than that, try to get a boxing fight. Will he get a boxing fight? I don't know, but he should try to fight sooner than that. But when he does fight in 2024 in MMA and PFL, you know for a fact the UFC is going to put maybe a John Jones or a Conor McGregor or some huge name at the time to be on that card that night so that they can just wash Ngannou away and not have him be relevant in the sport at all. It's just simply business. We know that. It sucks, but Ngannou is getting some amount of money. You know, I do think my personal opinion about the situation is that Ngannou probably could have made similar or even more money in the UFC. Because I mean, imagine, and my big case of that is, imagine if Ngannou came back this year, he fought John Jones instead of Cyril Gane. It was Ngannou versus John Jones, and he KOs John Jones. Imagine that fight. Imagine the name Ngannou would be after that, how much money he would make. Ngannou versus Jones alone would sell well over 1 million pay-per-view buys. And then he KOs Jones. I mean, the sky's the limit. He's the new epic megastar of the UFC. And now we have to wait for him to fight in 2024 when he's an old man fighting competition, or if he does lose in the PFL, his whole career is basically done. PFL takes a massive L money-wise because they just invested in a complete dud. So you never know. I would take my chances fighting the greatest of all time rather than fighting, you know, Ante DeLiga, or however you say his name. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm excited to watch this fight. I think when it comes towards predictions for the main event, Poirier versus Gaethje, I think I am going to take Gaethje there because, and this is a really big factor on why I'm going to take Gaethje, because it's in Salt Lake City and it's at Elevation. That's a huge deal. The last time we saw a card at Elevation, guess what happened? Everybody gassed out, besides one person, and that was Kamaru Usman, who trains at Elevation. And guess who trains at Elevation and who doesn't? Gaethje does, and Poirier doesn't. That's going to be a huge deal, especially in this war of a fight that's going to be. It's going to be a crazy, probably back and forth fight. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a war, and we know that gas tank is going to be a very huge deal. If it's at Elevation, Gaethje will be way more comfortable and will probably be able to push harder in certain moments of the fight. Also, I think Gaethje in general has been, really working himself and really developing himself as a fighter to get back to getting a title shot again. I think Poirier is kind of the same fighter he's always been, so to speak. But yeah, that's just a quick early prediction. We do have Blachowicz versus Pereira. This one, I don't know. I don't know at all. It depends what Blachowicz wants to do. If he wants to grapple, he can definitely grapple Alex Pereira here and take him down and control him. But this would be, the potential for Alex Pereira and Adesanya to meet again at 205 is unmatched. You know for a fact, if Alex Pereira beats Jan Blachowicz, they're giving him an instant title shot against Jamal Hill or Yuri Prochazka, whoever wins that fight. And if he wins that, the UFC would be, literally at this point, they would be probably the UFC's gonna be feeling absolutely amazing. Poor Megaman Ankalaev, he probably will get skipped out if Alex Pereira wins this fight. He definitely will not get a title shot if Pereira wins, but it is what it is. It'd be more interesting, bro. That's all I have to say. It doesn't matter. The UFC does whatever they want to do. And if they want to give somebody who has a big name and a big face in the sport a title shot, they're going to give it over anybody that is, deserving of it. Doesn't matter if you deserve it or not. You have to be interesting. It's like Bilal Muhammad. Rip to him. He's probably going to get overtaken by somebody at some point because his fight style is not the most interesting, and that's what the UFC values. But yeah, that's all I'm going to do for now. I don't know. A quick thing. I don't know why Paulo Costa and Ikram Aliskerov are fighting. Why is Aliskerov getting Paulo Costa? I do not know. He literally has one win in the UFC, and he gets number 5 Paulo Costa at middleweight. That makes zero sense to me. Stephen Thompson versus Miguel Pereira. That fight's been probably in the works for a while now. I know it's been coming up. Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green, obviously. Actually, not a bad matchup for Tony Ferguson. I know he's old. I know he's slow. I know he's lost a little bit of that old Tony Ferguson. But Bobby Green doesn't have too much heat in his hands, so Tony Ferguson might be able to take some of those punches. But I can just see Bobby Green piecing him up on the feet, for 3 rounds. Hopefully we can get some good old shades of Tony Ferguson back in the lightweight division. And then Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Again, this is all at elevation, so anything could happen. Anything could possibly happen in these fights. People could gas who don't normally gas. I will be taking Kevin Holland. I think he'll probably end up darsing a gassed out Michael Chiesa in the first or second round. And that's all I have for now. I don't want to dive too deep into it because I want to save those for when I do my actual predictions and breakdowns. But yeah, that's just kind of what I have as my first thought, initial thought, and my rough estimate of how these fights kind of will go. Yeah, rest in peace Ngannou, man. I guess get your funny up, bro. L plus ratio, El Bozo, Also, one last thing, I did forget this. They did confirm Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley for the headline, the main event for UFC 292, which I am also really excited for. They have Zhang Wei Li versus Amanda Lemos being the co-main event, which is kind of surprising. I kind of predicted this, this is kind of what I expected. I honestly thought they were going to make Hill versus Prochazka be the main event and then have Sterling versus O'Malley be the co-main event. I thought that would be smarter and a more wise business move, but I guess they're going to save that for maybe a 293 card, Hill versus Prochazka, or maybe 294. They might put it in Abu Dhabi. Who knows? Really depends. But yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm going to take Sean O'Malley in that one, and I have my reasons for it. I do have my reasons for it. It's a really, truly a 50-50 fight when it comes to this. But I think Aljamain Sterling's takedowns have been looking so ass recently, and that's a big reason why I'm taking Sean O'Malley. But when I get to it, I will break down, do an in-depth breakdown. Eventually, when that cards come up, it will be Saturday, August 19th. So yes, thank you, UFC. I do appreciate that. Oh yeah, and also forgot, Dern versus Hill is this weekend. So if you do want to come out and watch this trash card, I will be streaming it. So you can come watch me basically be miserable for the main card. Hopefully the fights will be good. Typically the trash cards are always somewhat good. So if you do want to come and enjoy the experience with me, I will be live streaming it. And yeah, it's really all I have. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment about your opinion about how you feel about Ngannou or 291 and who thinks going to win those fights as well. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Peace.